I've led this discussion a number of times, both here and in Oklahoma. There was a time when I spent about 45 sessions just covering 40 different religions. We're not going to do that today. We're going to cover 4 today. Just for fun, though, I would like to have you give me a thumbs up. I'm going to read off some names of religions, or it might just be names that I made up. But I want you to give me a thumbs up if you've ever heard of that religion, or if you think it's even a real religion. And when I say a real religion, I mean a recognized religion. Something that the government of the country where they are would recognize them. I'm not talking about some people that sit on the back porch on Sunday morning, say we're very spiritual, we worship nature. That's not a religion. That's just a family sitting on a back porch. But I'm going to name some things that might or might not be recognized religion, and you tell me whether you've ever heard of them and whether you believe they exist. Roman Catholicism, Roman Catholic. Okay. How about Unitarian Universalism? Okay. How about Church of the Nazarene?
I have to hide my thumb. Someone will watch me.
Oh, okay. Eastern Orthodox. Moravian Church. Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
I've heard of it.
Hinduism. Buddhism. Judaism. Taoism. Islam. Secular humanism. Witchcraft. Shinto. There are no wrong answers. I'm just asking a question. Satanism. Rosicrucian. Unification Church, also known as the Moonies. How about the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, or Hare Krishna? All right. Believe it or not, I mean, there were some thumbs that didn't go up on all of them. Believe it or not, every one of those is a recognized church, including the Flying Spaghetti Monster, including Unitarian Universalism. There's actually 2 Unitarian Universalism congregations in Kerrville, just 20 miles from here. So there are over 400 recognized religions in the world. We're going to talk about 4 of them today, just for lack of time. And I wouldn't keep your interest in talking about 400 of them anyway. We're going to talk about Judaism first. The Bible talks about Jews. Numerous times the Bible talks about Jews. Judaism and Jews are one of the few religions where the word Jew can mean 2 things. You can be a Jew by living in Israel, or you can be a Jew because you practice Judaism. If somebody asks you all, what nationality are you? You'd probably say, well, I'm American, I live in the United States. If they ask what religion you are or what your faith is, you'd say, I'm a Lutheran. So there's a distinction between our nationality and how we worship. But the term Jew can mean both. It can be one that worships in the fashion of Judaism as a religion, or it could simply mean, I live in Israel. I'm a Jew. I don't go to synagogue. I don't worship. But I am a Jew because I grew up a Jew. So keep that in mind. I'm going to read you just part of the Jewish creed. We are familiar with our own Apostles' Creed because we do that several Sundays out of the month. I'm going to read you just part of the creed of the Judaism. I will say, blessed be his name, because in every stanza of the creed, they are respecting God by saying, blessed be his name. So, I believe with perfect faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is the creator and guide of everything that has been created, and he alone has made, does make, and will make all things. So they believe in the same God, the Creator, that we do. I believe with perfect faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is one, and there is no unity in any manner like unto him, and that he alone is our God, who was, is, and will be. So by saying he alone is our God, they are excluding the Holy Spirit or Jesus Christ. So Jews believe in God the Creator, same God we believe in, but they don't recognize Jesus Christ the Messiah, we refer to him as a Messiah also. They think the Messiah is still coming. They have not received the Messiah yet. I believe with perfect faith that the Creator, blessed be his name, is not a body, and that he is free from all properties of matter, and that he has not any form whatsoever. So they don't see God as having form. They see God as being God, but without form. I believe with perfect faith that to the Creator, blessed be his name, and to him alone it is right to pray, and it is not right to pray to any besides him. So they don't pray to Jesus Christ, or they don't pray to the Holy Spirit. Again, only to God the Creator. I believe with perfect faith that this Torah, and I'll tell you in a minute what the Torah is, will not be changed, and that there will never be any other law from the Creator, blessed be his name. So they reject our New Testament, for instance. I believe with perfect faith that there will be a revival of the dead at the end of times, and it shall please the Creator, and blessed be his name, and exalted be his name forever and ever. For thy salvation I hope, O Lord. So they do believe in resurrection. They do believe in a life hereafter. But you will see that they don't look to Jesus Christ for their salvation. Judaism acknowledges that there's sin and that there's a need for atonement. There's a need to make right the sin that we all commit. However, they don't see the system of salvation that we have in Christianity. Atonement for them is done by sacrifices, by penitence, by good deeds, and by the grace of God. So they realize, same as we do, that grace has to come into the picture. We, of course, as Christians teach that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our atonement, on our behalf. And that's not taught in Judaism. They are fully aware, a believing Jew is fully aware that without the grace of God, they would all be doomed. They recognize they can't be served, they can't be saved by works alone, and you will see in a moment why that is the case. There are many, many required works that are called for in the Torah, and were it not for the grace of God, there would be no salvation for them. The Torah, it's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. We call them the books of Moses. Anybody here know any other name you've learned for the first 5 books? Anybody remember the term Pentateuch? That is basically their Bible, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They've been passed down for generations and generations through the Jewish faith. In addition, Judaism has the Talmud. Talmud literally means to learn. It is a large collection of writings that have been compiled over many, many years. Jews have a tradition for almost everything. Anybody here ever seen the movie Fiddler on the Roof? I didn't figure too many of you had. It's a wonderful movie. It is set in the early 1900s. It is a community of Jews living in Russia. Russia is being run by a czar. That's a dictator. And the czar doesn't like Jews. He's trying to drive them out of Russia. And so one of the people asked the rabbi would be the equivalent of our pastors, asked the rabbis, is there a proper blessing for the czar? Now, the czar would be like saying today, is there a proper blessing for President Putin, the president of Russia right now, who most of us don't look very kindly upon. So they asked the rabbi, is there a proper blessing for the czar? And the rabbi thinks for a minute and he said, yes, may the Lord bless and keep the czar far away from us. So they have a tradition and a blessing for virtually everything. The Talmud is very extensive, about, well, over 6,000 pages. If you set it on a bookshelf, it would be that wide. You can imagine what's written in 6,000 pages of literature. Very hard to read. It's written in Hebrew and in very, very old Aramaic. Even people that spend their entire life trying to study the Talmud find much of it hard to understand, because a lot of the words that used to exist in Old Aramaic and Old Hebrew are no longer in use, so it's hard to figure out what they mean. Same thing exists in English today. I mean, I could throw out some words that used to be common use in English that you probably don't understand or recognize anymore. Anybody here know what ill-flocked means? You've got tangled hair. Okay. How about grope? Who knows what grope means? Meant you were watching somebody eat. We don't use that word anymore.
Eating group.
Yeah. How about twaddle?
Like waddle?
Twaddle, that's twaddled for a while.
Is that like twiddling?
Messing with go.
Huh?
Go.
That sounds like that could be what it is, but it's to spread gossip. Kind of like tweeting these days.
We do that too much.
Yeah.
We do that.
So if you can imagine trying to read and study 6,000 pages full of words that aren't in existence anymore, we don't know what they mean. People spend their entire life trying to do that. There are basically 5 branches of Judaism. Hasidic Jews are the ultra Orthodox Jews. If you met a Hasidic Jew on the streets of New York, and there are some communities of Hasidic Jews in New York, you would find the men wearing long hair and long, long sideburns, because the Old Testament forbids them to cut their sideburns. That's how seriously they take the law. Then there are Orthodox Jews who, primarily the rabbis and some of the really, really devout Orthodox Jews, study the Talmud and recite it and do lots of that. Then there are the conservative Jews. They're not quite as Orthodox. Then there are the Reformed Jews who pretty much see the Talmud as being a historic document, but it's not laws that we need to follow. And then there are Messianic Jews. We have had Jews for Jesus here at Bethany. Those are Jews that they follow Judaism, but they also believe that Jesus Christ was our Lord and Savior. So they make up probably what you would consider the most liberal Jews, because that totally is outside the realm of Judaism. I read that creed of faith to you to begin with, which says, you pray to only one God. You don't pray to Jesus, and there is but one God, and He is not a triune God. So, now let me tell you how many laws they have. And they're all in those first 5 books of Moses. The Jews have 613 commandments. We have what? 10? Okay. Try to keep 613 commandments. They're called the mitzvah 613. They have both positive and negative things. They have thou shalt do and thou shalt not do. They cover all sorts of things. Of those 613, not all of them can be kept anymore, because some of them pertain only to the temple. And of course the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago. So if the law said thou shalt not bring a disfeathered turtle dove into the temple, and the temple no longer exists, that's obviously a law you can't follow anymore. But there are still 271 that can be observed today. 26 of those apply only if you're in the land of Israel. Some apply only to men, some apply only to women, but all of them are found in the first 5 books of Moses. Examples: don't eat the paschal meat raw or boiled. Don't curse the leader of the Sanhedrin. Don't eat non-kosher maggots. You would think that would be pretty self-evident. Some of them have to do with men and women only. Some of them, you would say, these are self-evident. Thou shalt not steal. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, what culture you're in. It's kind of common sense, thou shalt not steal. On the other hand, our commandment that says, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, well, had God not told us that, we wouldn't know automatically that there's a holy day in the week, right? And then there are some that we as Christians and they as Jews absolutely don't know why God told them that, but God had a reason, and it is written as such. So I'll give you some examples of things that are found in the Old Testament. Don't tattoo your skin. Don't eat or drink on Yom Kippur. I'll talk about that in a minute. I told you about the one, don't cut the hair on the side of your head. There are things about the priest shall not enter the Holy of Holies with any torn garment. Well, you might say, well, that must be out of respect to God. But would we know to do that without God telling us? Probably not. That's not one that I would call self-evident. There are ones that deal with criminal law, with how to treat your employees, how to treat your slaves, times of the season. When there's 613, there's a lot to talk about. There are in the Talmud rabbis who have argued, debated subjects for many, many years. You know, right now, and we have for a number of years, we have debated within this country whether a fetus, whether an unborn child is a human being or not, whether it is right to abort. There are people that feel certainly that you have every right to abort a child because they're not a child until they're born, and a lot of us would say, no, that's not the case, that fetus is a human being. One of the Jewish laws is that the firstborn of an animal has to be consecrated to God. Well, it also says the firstborn in Israel. Well, Israel is a country. So, obviously, if you're a Jew and you have a donkey that has a baby, and it's her first baby, then that baby needs to be consecrated to God. What if you buy a donkey in Egypt, which is not Israel, and before you get the donkey back home, the donkey has a baby, her firstborn, one born in Israel? Does that baby now have to be consecrated to God? And they can argue that back and forth, you know. And once they debate it out, then they write it into the Talmud, and it becomes something that the Jewish faith, the Orthodox Jews, will follow. And that's why it's 6,000 pages long, because they have been arguing these things back and forth from before Christ was born until about 500 years after he was born. So they had 500 years to discuss these things and write them down. So. That is a quick and dirty of the Jewish faith. I'm looking at my watch frequently because I'm trying to cover a lot of stuff in a little time. How much time do I have?
Till 7 o'clock.
Oh, till 7, okay.
Might throw a break in there someplace.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go to Hinduism next. I think I saw a lot of thumbs up for Hinduism. Very, very large religion on earth. Judaism had a rule for everything. I told you that. Hinduism has a rule for almost nothing. It's a very fluid, forever changing religion. It's one of the oldest of all religions. It's also one of the most complex of all the religions. There are many sects within Hinduism, very diverse beliefs. Trying to stand up here and tell you what Hinduism is about as easy as if I took a glob of Jell-O and tried to nail it on the wall. You just can't do it. Many of the terms in Hinduism come from old languages, Bengali, Hindi, Sanskrit, etc. There's nothing to be gained by me today standing here and using those terms. I'm going to try to do everything in English. It's not one religion. It is really a family of religions. Many diverse beliefs. A Hindu can be a Hindu and believe in many gods, a polytheist. Can believe in just one god, a monotheist. Can be an atheist, not believe in any gods. Can be a pantheist and believe that all of the universe is God. Some Hindus worship Vishnu, some worship Shiva. Virtually all of them believe in Brahman. Brahman is another one of those things I can't define. They pretty much can't define Brahman. It is the eternal reality. Brahma is the creator God. It's the first member of the Hindu triad. We have the Trinity. We would say the first member of our Trinity is God the Father. Their creator God is called Brahma. Besides Brahma is Shiva and Vishnu. Vishnu is the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer. They accept the caste system. It is both a social system and a part of their religion. Any of you ever heard of the caste system?
Have y'all taken any world religion at all? Or is it just like Texas history?
Texas history.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the caste system. It is unique to Hinduism in that it is the accepted thing. I mean, we have, in our culture, we have people that we consider upper echelon, and we have people that we consider, oh, they're way down there. But it is not a part of it is not a recognized part of our culture, nor written as such. But the caste system exists in their religion. There's a law of karma. Any of you ever heard of karma? What goes around comes around. You do bad, you're going to reap what you sowed, that type of thing. Okay, that is definitely part of their religion. They believe in reincarnation. Reincarnation is a system of rebirths. In other words, the soul exists forever. The soul is eternal. The soul is without end. But our bodies, we will die. And in their religion, after death, your soul will come back in another body, in another life. Maybe a human being. Maybe a human being that of greater stature than you were in your prior life. Or you may actually come back as an animal. But you're always striving within the Hindu religion to come back as something better than you were in a previous life. Nirvana is going to be the final stage of your soul, and that's what they all strive for. Hinduism teaches tolerance of other religions because they see the sameness in all religions. They have a path of tolerance. We see the Muslim religion and the Jewish religion very much at odds. We see, in my time, you don't see it much anymore, but when I was a young man, Protestants generally didn't go to dances at St. Mary's. Wasn't actually forbidden, but it was the accepted thing. I married a Roman Catholic. That was kind of frowned upon by many Lutherans. And Roman Catholics frowned upon Catholic girls marrying a Lutheran man. Hinduism doesn't look at it that way. Hinduism accepts all religions. They have been around for thousands of years. Most of their writings started 1400 years before Christ was born. They have a song of the Blessed Lord. It was written in the 1st century after Jesus was born. It is the most sacred of all Hindu writings. If you have a chance to read it, I would say read it. It is, in a nutshell, it shows the value of devotion to a particular God as a means of devotion. Way too long to read today, of course. But the primary message is that no matter how high you are on the rung of life, whether you're the President of the United States, or whether you're the janitor at Bethany Lutheran Church, or whether you're homeless under the bridge by McDonald's, you still have a role and a right and a way to achieve salvation. Now the caste system, very unique to Hinduism. In their belief, Brahman created the first man. The person was called Manu. And from Manu sprung 4 types of people. From his head came the best and the most holy of people. They include royal families, they include priests, philosophers. Out of his hands came rulers and warriors. They would be what we would consider the upper middle class. Out of his thighs came craftsmen, carpenters, welders, merchants, farmers. And finally, out of his feet came the lowest of all castes. Their duty is to serve all the upper castes, their servants. Many in today's India are excluded from religious rights if they're in that lower class. Again, it is a natural order within their society, and it is a natural order within the religion because they believe it is inspired by the God Brahman.
There's no moving up and down.
There is no moving up and down except in another life. There are exceptions if you come to America. But within India, for instance, where Hinduism is by far the most established religion. There is no moving within a caste. You're born in that caste and you're there to stay. The thing about their understanding, though, of the caste system is, I may be a shoe repairman, and I will say, I can mend a pair of shoes, but I'm not smart enough to govern this country. You're smart enough to govern this country, but you don't know how to repair a pair of shoes. We all worship the same God, and everybody has to work out their own salvation. So just because you're of the lower caste doesn't mean that you don't have the same right and the same privilege before their gods. Again, it's hard to define. Brahman, he or she is a supreme reality, very dynamic, beyond definition. Even a Hindu will tell you that the mind cannot understand, no matter how much you meditate, no matter how much you worship, you cannot understand the reality of Brahman. One of their stories that they do as an analogy would be, if I had a bottle of water here and a teaspoon of salt. You can see the salt, you can see the water. I put the salt in the water, I shake it up, and the salt's no longer visible. We would say it's dissolved. But we know it's there, right? We know it's in that water. You can't see it anymore. You can taste it, you know it's there. And they would say that's the way it is with Brahman. We can't define why we can't see him. We can't define where he is or how he got there, but we know that the spirit is there. Karma, touched on it briefly, very much a part of their religion, refers to a person's actions and consequences thereof. In Hinduism, one of your present state of existence is determined by performances that you did in a prior lifetime. So you did bad things in your prior lifetime, you may come back reincarnated in a lower caste system than you were before. You do really good things in their religion in a prior lifetime, and you may come back stepped way up. In other words, they believe in performing righteous acts.
Can I just jump in there?
Sure.
One of the funny things about reincarnation, it's not just reincarnation as a person. So Hindus believe you can actually be reincarnated into animals or other such things. But believe it or not, if you were really, really, really good in this lifetime, one of the honors they believe is if you would be reincarnated as a cow. Serious.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But yeah, that's hard for us to understand. But they very much venerate the cow. They absolutely do. In their religion, there are three ways to achieve salvation. One is by works. That's a path through religious duties. Consists of carrying out rites, ceremonies. Most people can't do that because many of these ceremonies are expensive. They take a lot of time, and very few people in their culture have the time to do that, to earn salvation through these rites, or works you would call it. Another way is through knowledge. That's the second path. They're taught that the cause of all human suffering is ignorance. If you can become smart enough, you can achieve salvation that way. Most of the people within the caste system say, I wasn't born with enough knowledge and can't achieve enough knowledge to earn salvation that way. So the third way is through devotion. The devotion can be to a deity. It can be devotion to your family. It can be devotion to your boss. So everybody can be devoted to something. And so most Hindus, a majority of Hindus, strive to earn their salvation through devotion rather than through the means of knowledge or through the means of works. Pastor mentioned the sacred cow. Yes, Hindus have always revered the cow. They believe it possesses great power. And I will read you some of the words from their I'll call it the gospel according to the cow. Worship, O cow, to thy tail hair, and to thy hoofs, and to thy form. Hitherward we invite with prayer the cow. So the cow is venerated. Sacrifices from thy flanks was born. The rays of sunshine from thy cheeks, from thy forequarter and thy thighs, motion are generated, O cow. The cow is heaven, the cow is earth, the cow is Vishnu, Lord of life. The heavenly beings have drunk the outpouring of the cow, for some have milked her, some worship the fatness she has poured. Both gods and mortal men depend on life as being on the cow. So yeah, they worship the cow, and as Pastor said, yeah, that's one of the things you can achieve, is to come back as a cow, the sacred cow. There are a lot of, yes.
So they don't have so basically a cow is their god, basically?
Yes, not their only God, but treated as a God, yeah.
It's like a different Jesus?
I'm sorry?
Like a version of Jesus? Because like
Well,
Jesus is basically our second.
I wouldn't make that analogy, but the cow is venerated. They don't slaughter cows. You know, we take cows, we take calves to the stock show, we slaughter them, we eat them. That is not part of their culture, because that cow you killed might be your grandmother. Might be your grandmother having come back.
I'm gonna go vegan now.
They don't kill anything. Pretty much.
Or like you could
They don't kill anything.
How do they
Do they kill other animals?
Yeah, they kill other animals, yeah. They gotta eat.
You can only come back as a cow in their religion.
No, you can come back as other animals also, but the
And you
cow
can be
is the...
eaten.
Is the sacred one.
There are a lot of vegetarians as well.
Oh, yeah.
It
They come back
just
as
depends.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, one of the things that we would do for part of one of my classes is we would go to a Hindu temple to watch how they worship and stuff like that. And after their worship, they would always have a banquet, a big meal. And that was my introduction to Indian food. And there was no meat. You know, yes, it was very good. It was very good food.
What's the difference? Is vegan the one where they don't drink milk or anything like that, or is that?
Yeah,
vegetarian?
vegan is, we don't use any animal products at
I don't
all.
get that though, because you don't force a chicken to lay an egg, and you also, if you don't milk a dairy cow, then it others can get messed up.
Yeah, but you don't drink it.
And
Vegans probably don't have farms.
why though? Why do they get?
Because they only know about the cow, the bad cow factories or chicken factories or like don't
They should do some research.
And some people are just pretentious.
Yeah.
Like we
Randall could argue the vegan, they're always kind of rude.
I don't think any of us here are vegan.
Vegan
So
teacher.
we're all on your side.
Vegan.
You know how some,
We just say pizza.
you know how you can tell whether somebody's a vegan? They'll tell you. And that's on YouTube. Yeah, Hinduism is a very, very large religion. There's about 1 billion in India alone. There's about 3 million in America. One of the interesting things, just Kevin brought up about the caste system, many Hindus study in India. They come to the United States as medical doctors. We have a lot of Hindu medical doctors in this country. They probably have the highest educational level of any religious group in the U.S. 48% of all Hindus in the United States have a master's degree or higher. That's phenomenal. Pastor said he had gone to, during seminary, gone to Hindu temple. We have 28 temples in Texas. There are 3 in Austin. There's 13 up around Dallas, Fort Worth. So lots of Hindus around. In the Hindu religion, especially historically, your marriages are arranged. And they see that as being a big advantage. Girls and boys don't need to date. They don't need to spend money on dates. They don't have to worry about courtship. They don't have to worry about getting dissed and have a heart broken. unlike in the US where we think we gotta live with somebody for 3 months to see whether we're emotionally compatible, in Hinduism, you may not know your spouse, your to-be husband or wife, till the morning of the wedding. Yeah, I spent the night with a Hindu couple, and of course they intrigued me, so I asked them 1,000 questions. They had come to the United States. They bought, well, first of all, they worked as janitors in a tiny little 9-room hotel in San Francisco. Saved up enough money to buy the hotel, fixed it up, sold it, bought themselves a 28-room hotel, a dome. Fixed it up and sold it, and now they were in College Station with a 148-room hotel. And they were fixing it up. When I asked them how did they meet, they said, we were put together by our parents 8 hours before we got married. We knew each other 8 hours. I
They
said,
fall in love?
What if you absolutely despise each other?
well, I asked them, I said, did you love each other? We said, we learned to love each other. We learned to love each other. They were very happily married. They were very, very interesting and very progressive individuals. But they saw that as a perfect way of life because they didn't have to court anybody. They didn't have to get heartbreak of, their girlfriend dumping them during high school. Yes.
So what if you absolutely hated your spouse, you don't want to be with them at home? Can you get away from them?
Yeah, you can divorce in the Hindu religion. Amazingly enough, though, the divorce rate among Hindus is very low. Yeah. But
Probably
it's,
higher than American or
Or definitely?
yeah, we take divorce too freely. You take a vow for better or for worse, or however you write your vow. But a lot of people don't take that vow seriously. I know a woman here in Fredericksburg, been married 5 times, and one of those marriages lasted 2 weeks, and she didn't care.
oh,
Didn't care. So
chill out.
we don't take our vows in general. I shouldn't stereotype, but we probably don't take our marriage vows seriously enough, because those words, for better or worse, really mean a lot. They mean don't get along with them, better learn how to get along. My wife has cancer, and I have to take care of, I'm making this up, my wife doesn't have cancer. But let's say I was married to somebody who has cancer, and they need 10 years of care, bedridden, they're just rotting away. If you say for better or for worse, you're saying, I'm going to stick with this spouse, and I'm going to take care of it for him. Yes.
Is there a certain age that you have to get married?
Is there a certain age in Hinduism? No, there's not.
So if you don't want to get married young, you don't have to get married until you want to.
If your parents arrange it, then you need to get married, yeah.
You can
I
be
bet
really, really
That-
old and get married.
If that's what your parents wait for, but they typically don't.
No.
So if
They
they arrange
typically-
for you to get
How
married
young?
at 10,
Not in the Hindu religion, no. We'll talk about Islam after a while.
How
where,
young is
yeah,
it?
they get married that young. But they generally wait, the parents wait till the age of maturity to do a matchmaking. Ever seen, well, maybe you've never seen in real life, but have you ever seen anyone on television with, especially women with a little red dot on their forehead? That is a Hindu thing, and that is a sign that that woman is married. So, when you see that, Pastor Kevin talked about respecting other religions. It's good to know what that dot means and why you need to respect that. Don't flirt with that woman.
Do they still wear wedding rings?
I'm not aware of
that's
anyone.
their wedding ring.
Is the dot?
Dot on the head.
Is the wedding ring? The dot on their head's like a wedding ring? I'm gonna Google it.
I didn't understand you.
The dot on their head is like a wedding ring?
Oh, yeah, it's a symbol of being married, correct, yeah. I'm married and I don't wear a wedding ring. because
Where's your dot?
as pilots, we weren't allowed to wear wedding rings, because you can tear that finger off on an airplane too easily, so it's forbidden, and I don't even know whether my wedding ring still fits after 30 years.
I think they wear wedding rings,
I'm just not aware.
but it says that they wear it on the right hand because the left hand is considered unclean.
Okay.
Unclean. What the
So if you get married, don't put on.
I mean, that's where we traditionally wear them on our left hand.
Okay, that is a cultural phenomenon of the Mideast,
Correct.
that your left hand is your unclean hand. Because that's the hand you use to wipe, basically. And if
I was right.
if you are
Yeah.
caught stealing, the punishment was they would cut off your right hand.
I said that as jokingly, but I
No,
said
it-
that.
it's the truth. That is the truth. That is the unclean hand.
It's the unclean
I mean,
hand, right?
And
we're
so-
lucky to use
And
Yes.
never offer your left
I
hand to someone.
No, that's a huge insult. That is a huge insult. You never do
Like
that.
I shoot, I can shoot.
And we'll talk about it in Islam, but I actually had to watch a person get de-handed once
Yeah, it's good.
because they had stolen.
Wait, what?
No, what? Have a seat.
What did they?
We'll talk about it under Islam, but yeah, one of their rules is that you cut off the left hand for stealing.
Was it painful?
I would guess so. He wasn't under any anesthesia.
I didn't know if they just like-
clean because you want people to
I mean, you probably go like this.
Okay, let's move on to Buddhism.
dominant hand.
I have a book here called The Teaching of Buddha. That'll be the next religion we look at. I'm going to hand this around. I've read it cover to cover. You'll find a bunch of stuff in there that's highlighted. Buddhism basically has an eightfold path. It's expressed as right views, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right endeavor, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Right livelihood would mean picking the right occupation, and right concentration would be meditating. Where did Buddhism come from? Well, it was founded before Christ by a man, and by the way, Buddha is just a human being. Buddha is not a god. Buddha was founded by what we now call the Buddha. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. His father was a king, his mother was a queen. They lived in a castle, and when Siddhartha was born, a soothsayer said that if this prince stays in the castle, he will grow up to be a mighty ruler. If he leaves the castle and goes to the outside world, he will end up being a homeless teacher. So his father, in order to prevent him ever becoming a homeless teacher, really shielded this boy, protected this boy. As a young man, he was within the castle. He was protected from ever seeing an old person. He was protected from ever seeing a sick person. He was protected and shielded from ever seeing a dead person. So he grew up leading a very sheltered life. Sometime in his life, and we don't know when because it's contradicted in different documents, but at some point in his life he left the castle and he saw the reality of the outside world. He saw a corpse, he saw a dead person. He saw beggars sitting along the side of the road, poor. He saw illness, he saw leprosy, he saw all the bad things that real life brings. And so once he realized that life wasn't all goody like it was in the castle, he decided that he wanted to meditate on all this. And so he ate, this is the story, he went and sat under a tree. Some accounts say he sat under the tree for 6 months. We know that isn't true. Some accounts say he sat under the tree for 1 day. But by the next morning, he had achieved enlightenment. And that's what the Buddha means. He is the enlightened one. He has become enlightened. By the way, if you ever go to a Chinese restaurant and you see this fat, happy Buddha sitting there, that is not the Buddha of Buddhism. That's just the happy Buddha. He's just a little is just a little statue in a lot of restaurants. So, the Buddha, again, was a human being, not a god, and still is not a god. I will read to you some of the teachings of Buddhism. You should not believe anything without thinking. There's a lot of truth in that. We read a lot of stuff on the internet now and take it for face value. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. I could have posted it. You know? So Buddhists are encouraged, and this all comes from the Buddha. This all comes from this man who 2,500 years ago sat and meditated and came up with the teachings of Buddha. They're encouraged to test everything they read or hear to see whether it lives up to the standards of truth. And in most cases, that is your standard of truth. You know, we talk a lot these days about truth and what is truth. Pastor Kevin used an example in a Bible study some weeks ago, and I said, well, I've seen the extreme where a parent told me that 2 + 2 isn't necessarily 4. 2 + 2 could be 5. You know? That's the extreme to which they want to press truth as being something evident only to yourself. So, but Buddhists are encouraged to set their own standards to determine what they have just read or seen or heard is the truth. They teach that gods and deities are cultural. In some Buddhist camps there are many gods, in others there are none. It would be wrong to say that Buddhists teach that there is no God. It would be wrong to say that Buddhists believe there are many gods. But they do believe that gods are the conception of humans for a particular time in history. They are a development of human beings, and they are cultural, and what might be your God today may not be a valid God in another culture or 10 years from now. They teach don't worry too much about the nature of God. It is more important to take steps to solve your own suffering, to end your own suffering, than to spend a lot of time discussing what is the true nature of God. They consider that an unanswerable question. And we probably, to some degree, should be also. We know that God is loving, we know that God is merciful, we know that He's the Creator, but there's a lot we don't know about God. And we have to accept it, in my opinion. The purpose of life, they think life exists in itself. There is no inherent meaning in life. We hear that question sometimes. What is the meaning of life? Well, that's one of the things that hard to answer. They believe that all people should strive to end suffering and to achieve their own happiness. The purpose in life, if they state a purpose in life, is to end suffering. Much like what we said in Hinduism, they do believe in an afterlife, and they believe that afterlife depends on your current life. In other words, they also believe in karma. There are consequences from what you do in this life, and that will be carried forward into your reincarnation. The Buddhist aim, of course, is to educate yourself, to meditate, to escape any suffering, and in the end, to be reborn in nirvana. And that nirvana is that ultimate end salvation where you're no longer being reborn. And that's what Buddha said he did by meditating under the tree. So he achieved it fairly quickly. Books, teaching, readings, all of those are very important because they undo ignorance. Meditation is the key. Without calming our mind, without examining our mind, without examining everything in nature, meditation can't be for real. And you will never achieve enlightenment. Lots and lots of Buddhists use meditation. lots of them use medicine as well as meditation to heal themselves. Because part of their teaching is that everything external to you is brought on by your internal thinking. So if you're sick, you brought up that sickness. And you can meditate your way out of that sickness in many cases. It is really up to yourselves to meditate and to study and to minimize your suffering and to get released from that suffering. Any questions on Buddhism? I think it's probably time for a break. Yes, sir?
For the Buddhists, there's like these, I saw there's like these dudes in robes that they sat down and then they offered stuff to them because they did like work for them, or the Buddhists do so much for them or something.
Like the monks?
Oh, the monks.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a sect in Buddhism that are monks that devote their entire life to a Buddhist monastery, and they basically spend their life meditating. And they do good deeds also, outside the monastery. But they are devoted to the religious life, I would call it. You all need a break? Okay, the last one we're going to talk about today
I'm not mad about it.
is Islam.
I would have made a 10. I got one question, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
It isn't like ISM.
ISLAM, Islam. They use the Quran as what is the equivalent of our Bible. I will hand this around. I've read it cover to cover. I will tell you right up front that I don't agree with very much that's in it. I do not like the religion of Islam, and the people that are Islamists are Muslims. They call themselves Muslims. But the religion is the religion of Islam. You can hand those Qurans around. Those are two different translations, just like we have many different translations of the Bible. Those are by two different translators. We have, in the Holy Bible, we have the King James Version, we have the New King James Version, we have the Good News Bible, we have the New English Version. There are many, many versions of the Bible. They all should tell us the same thing, but they use different English words in many cases. So let's talk about Muslims. They worship the god Allah. Allah is actually two words, two syllables. Al just means the. That's the word for Allah. La is God. So Allah means the God. Sometimes you will hear Islamic people chanting Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, which means the God is greatest. But they drop the, so it just means God is greatest. There are a number of words in our language that start with al that come from the old Middle East languages, like algebra. I know you all love algebra.
Algebra was fun.
Yeah, some of you love math. Algebra is a word that the Muslim, the study of that math actually came about in the Middle East, and algebra actually means a reunion. Well, when we do algebra, we do things like a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. We're reuniting a squared and b squared, for instance. Okay, well, I'm a little off the subject there. But,
Hey, the more we know.
the more you know. Yes, someday you'll be on a quiz show and you'll know. Okay, how do you become a Muslim? It's very simple to become a Muslim. You say with conviction the following words. You actually say them in the language of the country, but I'll do it in English. I bear witness that there is no God except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Who do you think wrote those words?
Mahala.
Muhammad. So he's saying there about himself, bear witness that I, Muhammad, am the messenger of Allah. And Muslims have to believe that he was in fact the messenger of God. Once you do that testimony of faith, once you say those words, and you say them with conviction and with belief, then you are a Muslim. Then the other things you have to do, there are 5 pillars of faith in the Muslim religion. You do 5 daily prayers. There is a call to prayer 5 times a day. First one is at dawn, then at noon, then at mid-afternoon, finally at sunset, and then at night at bedtime. They are very devoted to prayer, and I'll talk more about their forms of prayer later on. Giving to charity is a requirement of being a Muslim. 2.5% of your income must be given to charity. In the month of Ramadan, you must fast, you must abstain from eating during the daylight hours. And if you're able, if you can afford to do it and your health allows it, you have to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is a city in Saudi Arabia. You have to do that once in your lifetime.
You have to walk? Pilgrimage? Does that mean like walk?
No, you don't have to. No, you can fly over there, but once you get there, you're going to walk around this big square in Mecca.
Is it, how many, is it like a football field or?
Much bigger.
And there's like a tall
Box.
Yeah.
Like a couple miles?
And they think that
No,
one
but
guy-
to give you an idea, there could be 200,000 people walking around it at once. So it's a huge square. It's a huge square.
Yeah.
they think that one.
But you're supposed to do that once in your lifetime, if you're able, both financially and physically to do it.
I can
Why
do
do they
it.
have to do that?
It's part of their belief. Part of their belief. Okay, the Quran was being passed around. They believe that that is the last in a series of revelations that God gave. They believe that Moses was a prophet. They believe that Jesus Christ was a mere human, and we'll talk about that later on. But they do accept Jesus Christ as being a teacher. But that Muhammad was the last and final prophet. Nothing shall be written after him. And just like earlier when I read from Judaism and their statement of faith, when they say the word, when they say the name Muhammad, they will always, even in writing, follow it by peace be unto him. So that is out of respect for Muhammad. They teach that there is one God, and I will read to you from the Quran in a little while and why they believe that and what is written about it. They believe the Quran is a very unique book in that we teach the Bible was written by man but inspired by God. In other words, God didn't take a pencil, he didn't take a typewriter and print our Bible. God inspired human beings to write it. On the other hand, they teach that the Quran was dictated to Muhammad some 1400 years ago by the angel Gabriel, verbatim speaking what God told the angel to say. So there is no human error, there is no human ad lib in the Quran according to their teaching. It is the verbatim word of God, and it is the only book that exists that is a verbatim word of God. Muhammad, we don't know exactly how long it took him. Most theories are that it took him about 23 to 26 years. Muhammad could neither read nor write. So the story goes that Muhammad went up on a mountain every day. He met there with the angel Gabriel. The angel Gabriel dictated to him the words in the Quran. Because he couldn't read or write, he would come back off the mountain and dictate verbatim to scribes exactly what Gabriel had told him. Now, I can't remember what my wife told me 5 minutes ago. I certainly could not listen to Gabriel all day and come back off the mountain and dictate to somebody that can write what I was just told.
That's a lot.
But that is their belief. They believe that it is not the word of Muhammad, it is the word of God. But Muhammad is his infallible messenger, and that's how they refer to him. One of the things says, "You, O Muhammad," and I'm not going to say peace be unto him every time. "O Muhammad, you were never a reader of any scripture before, nor did you write with your right hand, for then those who follow falsehood might have a right to doubt it." And that is that our Bible is written in chapters and verses. Their Quran is written in Surah, which is, well, they call it like Surah 18 semicolon 24. So that's equivalent to our chapter and verse. So that happens to be 29:48 that I just read to you. Again, typically believe that it took him about 23 years to do this. There are 1.8 billion Muslims in the world right now. About 24% of the world is Muslim currently.
What percentage is Christianity?
Less than that. Islam is the highest population of any religion on earth. About 8% of Islam believers are considered militant Islamics, and that means there's still about 144 million that are militant Islamics. I will read to you from the book of Quran, and you will see how it totally disagrees with our teaching and our Bible. In a couple of cases, I will tell you where it comes from. Surah 1988. "Those who say the Lord of mercy has begotten a son preach a monstrous falsehood, at which the very heavens will crack, the earth break asunder, and the mountains crumble to dust. That they should ascribe a son to the merciful, when it does not become the Lord of mercy to beget one." So we say Jesus Christ is the Son of God. They say that's a hideous thinking, that God will ever beget a son. Jesus, who is Mary's son, again, I'm reading from the Quran, 43:59. Mary's son, he was no more than a mortal. The people of the book, in other words, Christians and Jews, denied the truth and uttered a monstrous falsehood against Mary. They declared, "We have put to death the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, the apostles of God." They did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but a likeness was made for them. In other words, they don't believe Jesus was ever crucified. Some stunt man was put in his place. Jesus wasn't crucified according to the Quran. Surah 3:85. "He that chooses a religion other than Islam, it will not be accepted from him, and in the world to come, he will surely be among the losers." So if you don't practice Islam, you're a loser in the sight of God.
It's like the religious bully.
Yeah. I'm going to quit quoting. I'm going to quit telling you where it comes from in the Quran, but I'm just going to read the words of the Quran. "But those that disbelieve and deny our Quran shall be the inmates of the fire and abide therein forever and ever." On Jews and Christians. "But God has cursed them for their unbelief. They have but little faith. And now the Quran, confirming their own, has come to them from God. They deny it. God curses be upon those infidels. They have incurred God's most horrible wrath." So, the Quran is very specific in many places on what they think of Jews and Christians. They label us as infidels or unbelievers. The only true faith in God's sight is Islam. And there I've substituted the word God for Allah, which is what the Quran actually says. Unbelievers are those who declare Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of Mary. People of the book, in other words, Jews and Christians, is it not that you hate us only because we believe in God and that what we have revealed to us and others therefore, and because most of you are evildoers? Say, shall I tell you who will receive a worse reward from God? When they came to you, they said, we are believers. Indeed, infidels came, and the infidels they departed. God knew best what they concealed. Non-Muslims among the people of the book and the pagans shall burn forever in the fire of hell. They are the vilest of all creatures. So the Quran is very derogatory to Christians and Jews. The Quran has lots of things to say about different things. It has lots to say about orphan girls. The male shall inherit twice as much as the female. Good women, be obedient. Guard your unseen parts because God has guarded them. For those from whom you fear disobedience, admonish them. He's talking now to men. Admonish them, send them to bed apart, and beat them. Then if they obey, take no more action against them. So a Muslim man is allowed to beat his wife, for instance. And there's a lot of that goes on. Not that it doesn't go on in the United States and Christian families only, but our Bible doesn't tell us that that's allowable or directed. On himself, in other words, what Gabriel told Muhammad about Muhammad. Muhammad is God's apostle. Those who followed him are ruthless to the unbelievers, but merciful to one another. In other words, you be ruthless to Christians and Jews, but be merciful to a fellow Muslim. I don't have time to do all of these. I will skip ahead. On the Quran itself, it says, if men and jinn are the Muslim version of devils. If men and devils had combined to write the like of this Quran, they surely would have failed to compose it. So they're saying that the Quran is inspired. Okay, a little bit about Muslims. There are two major sects of Muslims. There are Shiites and Sunnis. It is not that there are a lot of differences in their beliefs, but the division came mainly upon Muhammad's death. When Muhammad died, the Sunni Muslims thought that he should be succeeded or followed by the most capable and the best person to lead the Islamic religion. The Shiites felt that this position ought to go to Muhammad's brother-in-law or a nephew. So that was the big division at that time. Sunnis make up the majority of Muslims on earth. There are about 85% of Muslims are Sunni. There are, however, a significant amount of Shiite Muslims in Iran and Iraq, Yemen, Bahrain, for instance. I had the most contact with them in Bahrain, and so consequently they were Shiite. There are some very much smaller sects of Muslims in the world, but the Sunnis and the Shiites make up almost 100% of Muslims. One of the things that Surah 9 verse 5 says, then fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them. Seize them, beleaguer them, and lie in wait for them in every way of war. Take not the Jews and the Christians for friends. Fight them until Islam reigns supreme. Instill terror in the hearts of unbelievers. Cut off their heads and cut off the tips of their fingers. Okay, let's contrast that to what Jesus gave us in the Great Commandment in Matthew. What did Jesus tell us to do? He said, therefore go forth and make disciples in all nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. How are we to make disciples? How are we to make Christians in this world? What do we do? Baptize.
Not by cutting off heads.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Islam teaches
What? Sir?
Islam teaches either convert or cut off their heads in the fingers.
And remember, Jonathan, what Christianity teaches also about your enemies.
Yes. Love.
Love your enemies and bless those who persecute you. Very, very different message.
Very different. And that's why I will openly say I find Islam one of the most distasteful major religions in the world. One of the things a man can do in the world of Islam is divorce his wife. And it's such a simple matter. He can say to his wife 3 times, I divorce thee, I divorce thee, I divorce thee. And the marriage is ended. The wife has no such right.
So if he only says it twice, then I'm divorced.
You gotta do it 3 times. And there's even some precedents now. I mean, there's always had a precedent that he could write it out. He could write it out on paper. He could write it out on a wall where she would find it. But now there have actually been court cases where a man can divorce his wife by sending her the text. I divorce thee 3 times.
Oh.
Yeah.
What if it accidentally autocorrects?
That hasn't quite come up, but there has been a case where somebody took somebody else's phone and texted the woman.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't the man himself that did it.
So they
That
can
also has happened.
I get remarried?
Yes, you can remarry. Oh God, there's all sorts of laws about remarrying the woman you divorced. Yeah.
And see, I went to a mosque in college, and the women had to sit in a separate room from the men. And it was very interesting.
So you went to that kind of college?
I went to a Lutheran college. And
Keisha
took
and I
a
went to the
religion
same
course.
college.
Yeah, we went to the same place. I didn't go to seminary, but
Do y'all know each other?
Oh,
No, he's older than me.
I'm much older.
So I know here in America.
I'm much older.
They have to like do this document them.
I'm not sure.
How much younger religion?
Do they want you have to do
Like paperwork and stuff. So like I forget, but it's
paperwork?
for divorce.
You have to go to court.
Like 6 hours.
not always like yeah, or like
To be married. Did they?
It depends whether they're following American law
I'll make sure.
or whether they're following Sharia law. And their own, and we have groups in Detroit and various U.S. cities where they do not want to fall under American court system. They want their own court system, which is very, very different from our system of justice. And for instance, if a young girl causes something to have her family ashamed of her, they can kill her.
What?
That is under the Sharia law, which we in the U.S. totally disagree with, and that's why we don't want that to happen.
Causes that family people to
But in the Middle Eastern countries, that's just accepted.
All right, you promised the story about the guy in the hand. I want to hear this.
Oh yeah. Well, I haven't even gotten to the prayer, but yeah, they pray 5 times a day. They face Mecca when they pray. They well, I'll read it to you in a minute, but typically when you're in one of the Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or Iraq, when it is time for prayer, when the guy gets up in the tower and calls for prayer, the shopkeeper will chase you out of the shop. You know, I was in there to buy perfume. When it's time for prayer, everybody out. Everybody out. They lock up the shop and they get down on their knees and they bow to Mecca and they pray. That is the most important thing at that point. Doesn't matter that they've just lost a sale. I mean, can you imagine Dooley's chasing everybody out or Walmart chasing everybody out? I mean, their shops are tiny. They're the size of this room. But everybody leaves, they go out and pray. And that's mandatory. I mean, you don't have a choice. You don't stay in there looking for other stuff on the shelves. You get out of here.
So did you have to pray when that happened?
No,
Okay.
no. But you respect their culture. You don't walk in front of them when they're praying.
So what do you do? Just like stand?
Wait out on the sidewalk till they're done praying and they open their shop again.
So where do they pray at?
Out on the sidewalk typically. And there's specific laws about that. Let me just read that to you. And Pastor Kevin, I will get to the hand getting chopped off.
Gross.
Stop. I can't handle it.
Okay, this is an interesting piece. Now, this is not in the Quran. This is a piece, and I haven't even gotten to talking about imams, and I have about 6 minutes left. When you're praying, you typically do it behind a device that's called a sutra. It could be a camel's saddle. It can be a trash can. It's something that blocks you from the general public so that they won't walk between you and an arm's reach of Mecca. So here's what they say. When one of you prays without a sutra, in other words, I'm here praying, and they typically will do this. If something walks in front of you and I'm facing Mecca, that will cut off my prayer. So you put this little screen in front of you to make sure nobody walks in front of you. Okay, now get this. When one of you prays without a sutra,
Screen to the same.
here are the things that can pass in front of you that would cut off the prayer. When one of you prays without a sutra, a dog, an ass, that's a donkey, a pig, you know they hate pigs, they don't eat pork and they despise pigs, a Jew, a wizard, or a woman will cut off your prayer.
A woman.
Yes. So
Sexist.
women are put in the same category as a donkey, a pig, and a wizard.
So they're saying they despise us because
Yes.
When I was at the mosque, the men were all in the front room, and the women all got stuffed in this little like nursery area, and we were behind, so that it didn't distract the men, and I guess so that we didn't get in the way.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, a woman can cut off your prayer. So you put this
Oh
thing
my
in,
gosh.
and I respect their culture. You know, I know not to walk between that little obstacle and them facing me. As long as you walk beyond the sutra, then you're okay. But if you were to walk in front of them, within an arm's reach, if they don't have that screen there, then you've cut off their prayer. And that is a terrible offense to them. Okay, I talked about getting chased out of the shop. Another thing that can happen is if they have a public dehanding. You don't have a choice. I mean, it's kind of like our Old West, where if there was a hanging, it was often compulsory to come view the hanging. That's how you learned what the consequence of horse thievery was, is you see this person hung. So in those nations, when a person is caught stealing, and they have specific dollar amounts for the offense, but if you're caught stealing, like Pastor Kevin said, your right hand gets chopped off. You still need your left hand. So in this case, I was forced. I wasn't willing to do it, but I was forced to go to the town square and watch it. And there was quite a crowd there.
that'd be
Not something
interesting.
you want to see.
I was gonna say that'd be interesting.
You like to explain it?
I feel like I would want to watch that.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
that'd be
lay
a
the guy's
once in a
hand
lifetime
down,
experience.
and just like the old executioner, takes a huge machete and
At least
chops
they'll be able to like.
Like,
I guess
if they
there's
chop it
no
off
medical person waiting nearby to help.
Oh, yeah, they
or
stop the
are,
bleeding.
or-
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, they will be,
But the hand is gone. You're not too likely to steal again.
no.
Right on.
Yeah.
The Buddha thing's like,
I can still write.
never really heard of like our ag teacher
Yeah,
before every judging practice
yeah.
makes us rub the Buddha's belly and he has good luck. That's true.
Well, that's the happy Buddha that he makes you rub, right? Yeah, that is not part of Buddhism. That is part of
That's superstition.
yeah, that's strictly
That's-
superstition.
Like you don't wash your socks after every game because you lose.
That is
Yeah, I want you to differentiate between the happy fat Buddha.
no, he's weird.
Oh, yeah, he's probably not a Buddhist. He's just superstitious. Okay, we are just well, we are out of time. Any questions about anything that I've covered very quickly today? I could talk for 8 or 10 hours about Islam alone.
All right, let's thank Jonathan for coming out and sharing his wealth of knowledge.